All right. Well, let's not waste any more. I mean, let's not spend any more time on other things. I want to pass this over to Glenda Dehoff. Now, Glenda has just completed the amazing work that she's done on her level 3 project, which was the Mardi Gras Mayhem game that wrapped up and held together the conference. Now, as I said to Glenda, um, the game did what happened around the sessions in a way that did not detract from the sessions, but it kind of provided this glue, and it did so, I think, in a very rich way and meaningful for people. So Glenda just needs to now do her portfolio of evidence, and I'm quite confident that she will be the next coming level 3 official level 3 master craftsman.
All right,
I'm going to pass you
all
over to
right, all
Glenda
right, all
now.
right.
All right.
All right, I see a few faces that I recognize. We're at the GameCon, but a lot of you were not. So I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of a description about the Mardi Gras Mayhem game. It initially came to me as Monica's vision, along with Jeff Riley's help. They had a lot of ideas that they brought in. And so you'll see the people who were there will see a lot of things that they're familiar with. The lone figure emerges from the wreckage. It took place in 1899, and you learned about New Orleans, its history, and its culture. But it went through a lot of iterations. And the goal was so that our attendees could experience gamification from the learner's point of view, because that's a lot different than we view a project as developers. And so, of course, Monica and Jonathan had their business objectives that they wanted to try and achieve with this. And then we had the learners' objectives, how they could win and what they expected to get out of it and things like that. So we started with some basics, and that we had we had a vague idea about collecting cards. Of course, we wanted a good story to weave in there, uncover clues and solve challenges, and put together a float, getting random rewards, making strategic decisions, collaborating with their crew. I'm sure you'll see a lot of game mechanics here that you recognize. We put in a lot of them, not everyone, but a great deal of them. And then again, like I said, we wanted to start with the story. So I thought that a great place to start would be ChatGPT. I've heard a lot about it. I hadn't done a whole lot with it. So I asked it to extend the story, and then I put Monica's description in there, and it was terrible. A lot of first-time ChatGPT users do not get really good results. You need to learn to craft your requests, your prompts, and as you can see, there was no crafting in this request at all. So learning the hard way as I went through, I increasingly asked more pointed questions and gave it a role. You are an instructional designer developing a gamified adventure story. And as we started to identify the characters that we wanted in here, it started doing a little better with giving me background stories for a lot of the characters. But we had a lot of ideas going on in here. As you can see, we didn't know if we wanted to use, um, wait a minute, there we go, bundler AR or geo-teaming. We knew we wanted to do something with the parade route. We wanted to have like non-player characters. So we tossed around ideas like, well, maybe the vendors could be our non-player characters. And we had some other ideas about what they could be. And we had an idea about having a physical game board and solving puzzles and getting what happened? There they are. How they would move around this board, and would they have game pieces, and all kinds of. We had a lot of questions still, but as things started, we just kept pushing ahead and pushing ahead. Well, I know what we want to do here, so we knew we wanted to have these characters. So I started asking ChatGPT for background stories. This person is a barmaid in New Orleans. This person is called the trickster, and he doesn't do magic very well, but he's a respected member of the magic community. And I was also asked to weave in some sort of artificial intelligence. So we just started putting these ideas out there and refining them, and the whole thing started taking on a life of its own. So these cards that we wanted, I went to Game Crafter and looked at a lot of different templates. And this is the one then that we ended up using. And we were going to put their story over here. Well, too many of the stories were lengthy. So we did not, we're not able to do that. We put a card backing, a great image there. I went to a lot of different image generating AI sites. And I got to either they didn't have very robust free features, or they weren't very good. I got a lot of 6-fingered pictures with extra ears coming out the side of people's heads and all kinds of odd things like that. But I finally went to imagine.art, and they had a very robust free program, as long as we attributed the images to them. So they are on each and every image. And I knew when I saw these different colored gemstones down here that I needed to use those for something. I thought that is too cool to just be a decoration. So we ended up creating a gemstone code, whereas the numbers represented a letter of the alphabet. And in the end, it gave them the location of the treasure. But the neat part of it was there was no way to solve it definitively until almost the very end. So you had to stay involved in the game and actively participating to be able to solve that in using this code. Now, there were other ways. I tried to have multiple ways of solving this, and it ended up that we had several people solve the puzzle, but there was only one first, so we went with that. We used drive-through cards to print them, so, and they did a fabulous job. So what questions do you have either about the early process of using Chat GPT or in creating the game cards.
Where did you get the images that you put on the cards?
Those are all AI generated from this imagine.art.
Oh, okay.
So I would put in, I need a picture of a barmaid, and I would look at 25 images before I found one that I
Wow.
liked. Describing the trickster was actually, this I think was the first one that came out. Sometimes you kind of hit the lottery. So we ended up with 19 cards, one for each session. Here's some of my oopsies. I love the way the originality of some of these instruments. They don't really resemble a lot of things in real life. So there again, I went through quite a few of them. This one was kind of odd, but I also ended up, that's the one I used. I was just able to crop it so that it didn't show this interesting part here. So what's everybody's experience with AI image generation? Have you used it? Have you tried it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? I know Rebecca did, because we'll show some of her artwork here a little bit later.
I've done quite a bit, and I'm addicted. So the image in my background is one from AI that I did on a game room, based on like a mist format. So that's what it generated. But I've got, oh my Lord, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But I do get a kick out of the the three legs and the joints that don't move that way and the fingers and all sorts of interesting stuff. And it does take a while and I did put on at my work, I did a little seminar on how to just basic writing, writing the scripts, writing the prompts. And so and after a while you can kind of get those down. And I would recommend anybody who wants to do it is look at somebody else's graphics, and if you can grab the prompts from that and just modify them. So I've done a lot of that, and I keep a library of those. And so, I mean, it's really, really important. You don't want to start from scratch. If you've got a good prompt and you get a good result from that most of the time, you are going to mess it up. It's going to mess up, but eventually you're going to get a good one. And another thing, if you use a paid version, and then I'll let somebody else talk. But if you get a paid version of AI, I had paid versions. You can put a seed in there, a seed number. And that seed number is important because then it allows you to duplicate that one. So if you've worked with AI, you know each time you iterate, it does something different for you, and it's hard to get back to the original. If you put that seed number in there and you put that and it keeps that, then you can reprompt. When you reprompt that seed number, it will give you almost exactly what you had before, and you can work off of that. So you can put a different background, but you have the same character, that type of thing. Anyway, so I'll let somebody else talk.
Interesting. Yeah, that would have been good to know when
Yeah.
I was doing some of these.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Like I said, I keep pages and pages of prompts. So if I want to do something, if I want to do a car, I want to do a background of pirate, I have hundreds of pirate backgrounds just for GameGarage. So just for fun. But anyway.
Can I ask a question, Glenda? So when you say you're keeping a library, Phil, do you keep the image and the prompt?
Both. Yeah, so
right.
both. So I have the paid versions, unlike the unpaid versions, will keep your images, and you can make a decision if you want to download those or work on it further, or it keeps your prompts, and it says, okay, so I'll go through my images and say, okay, make one like this one. But if I got the seed in there, all the better. And that's something I've learned late in the ball game. And so I'm trying to become smarter in how I catalog my prompts, because I got Word files with prompts with examples of those pictures.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Which ones do you use that you have a paid subscription to?
Oh, I've spent too much money on I got about 4 or 5
Oh.
platforms, because each one does something different. So they all have different strengths. They all don't use the same engine, and they're all not as good. And some of them, rightfully so, some engines have what they call API filters that they won't let you do certain types of images, which I think is okay. And some just get outrageous with you. And so if you want to design and you want to stay within certain parameters, sometimes I use the ones with the API filters on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I discovered that too. You need to make sure that they're family friendly.
Yes, because sometimes they're not. I put the same code into 2 different engines just to play, and there's a world of difference in what you get out of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So great. So yes, generating AI image is rewarding and frustrating at the same time. And each one has a style, because while these there are are different, there's a lot of similarities. It quickly caught on to this color palette, and a lot of my graphics then retained that color palette, and it retained the kind of a steampunk flair, because I would ask for that because it was tech learn. So, but this was based in 1899. So there was kind of that marriage of the old and the new that I think steampunk does very well. So it was while I was generating some of these images that I came up with the idea that, yeah, I like that look. Let's go with that. We also came up with an idea about rewarding people with physical items, magical items. And so originally they were going to be cards. They were going to be their own cards. And instead of having a person's face on it, they would have a picture. And one day while we were talking, and I said, Monica, wouldn't it be cool if we could have actual physical items to hand out? And she says, that sounds great. Let's do it. So Monica was great at saying yes to as much as she could. She always says, say yes whenever you can. And I really appreciate that, because I think it added a lot of flavor to the game. A lot of people spoke highly of the physical aspect of the game. And at first, we didn't know what we were going to do with them exactly. So does everyone get one, or are they just like 1 or 2 that we hand out at random? All kinds of ideas, all kinds of things that we tried, we thought about, we discarded, and we ended up going with the real thing. Everyone got one, and they could use them to ask questions. But we didn't want it to make it too easy, so we made it that they could only ask yes or no questions. And so that gave it a little more difficulty, since everyone was getting one. And if there were 5 people on a team and there were 4 magical items, that's a lot of questions. So by limiting them to true false, it made it a little more difficult. And should we have resources like gold doubloons? We talked about that. Have like an economy. Can they buy things? Maybe they could buy the gems. And we discarded that because we didn't. It was a level of complexity that we really didn't want to introduce in here. We thought about Mardi Gras beads. Of course, you have to have Mardi Gras beads at a Mardi Gras themed event. So how would we give them? Do we just hand them out in their welcome package? Does everyone get them automatically? Then there was a character named Baron von Bead Snatcher. He seemed like the perfect person to hand out the beads. So that's what we did. Where would the key be hidden? Where would the treasure chest be hidden? And a lot of these were not really decided until close to the very end. So it was an ongoing, organic process. So as for an example, the key hiding place. We made a statue. We made it of a lion because we didn't want it to be a person something that did not exist in New Orleans at that time. I tried to be very careful about being historically as accurate as I could. Now, I did have to stretch it a couple of times, but here was this image generated by AI. Here was I had them generate these rocks, and then I brought it into Photoshop to make the spiral around. And we had the question that the pattern of the stones, it seemed to make a pattern, that there was one stone, then one stone, two stones, then 3, then 5, then 8. What was the next number? What's the pattern called, and what is the next number? And there was a lot of discussion. How are people going to know that? Well, everybody's got a cell phone. So when we created the instructions, one of the things I said is you can look up answers using any means available to you, without actually saying you can look them up on your cell phone with Google. So here again, GPT can get you in the ballpark, but sometimes you gotta add a little bit of fun yourself. Another thing we talked about was having a Mardi Gras float. We were going to have them build an actual float. We were going to hand out feathers and beads and glitter and all kinds of things during the event if they answered questions correctly. And then they would go back to their crew and they would build these floats. That could have easily taken up a lot of time that we ultimately decided was not productive for what we were trying to do. So this is where Rebecca shown, she went into an AI image generator and created these beautiful pictures all about New Orleans. And let me see if I can bring up some of the rest of them. No, I can't.
How do you mean you can't?
Oh, there it is. It was hidden behind.
Oh.
So yeah, here are some of the other lovely, lovely pictures. And we put the name of their crew on the puzzle, and of course the Sententia logo. And we sent them out to be printed. They came back just beautiful. They were 16 puzzle pieces. So you say, well, how difficult could it be to put together a 16-piece puzzle? We handed out the puzzle pieces throughout the event. They didn't get them all at once. The pattern is called the Fibonacci.
Fibonacci.
Sequence. Yes.
And surprisingly, there were a number of members on my team who understood what a Fibonacci puzzle was, and I had no idea. Like, how do you know that? And they were like, we paid attention in school. What were you doing? Yeah, I did not know it. So it was fun to learn. Does anyone else know Fibonacci? Are you amongst those that know it? Yeah, Sherry.
Math nerds.
Yeah.
Math nerds, yep.
A Fibonacci series, yes.
Yeah,
Math.
yeah.
Yes, it's called the Fibonacci series. Is that what it is, John?
Sequence.
Yes, the
Sequence.
sequence of the, yeah, it's in
Yeah.
its series.
Yeah.
I don't
Comes up a
remember the
lot.
rest of the.
Comes up
Yeah.
a lot in science fiction too.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's real big in science fiction because it is mathematical and it's being used to predict all kinds of things. So yeah, big in science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my focus was elsewhere in school.
Another thing we wanted was a game board. So it started out more like a traditional game board. And how would we have different, each person would have a game piece to move around or each crew would have a game piece to move around the game board. And everybody starts at the beginning and they would move different spaces and then they would have to do something. So if they had a 1, they gained a feather, or 2, they gained beads, a coin. Was this a stopping point? Gain an objective sticker. And I believe a lot of that was put together by Jeff Riley. And when he came up with a lot of the initial ideas to get this whole project started. Thank you, Jeffrey. I didn't have to totally start from scratch. But we eventually moved away from the game board and the idea of having people at different places at different times. We made the decision to move everybody through the process pretty much at the same time. So during the first class, everybody got a card. When there were 2 classes, people who went to class number 1 got 1 card, and people who attended the other got a different card. And so here again, Ian's not here, but a big shout out to Ian for helping get this map started. He said at one time he had done some map design for one of his jobs. So he was happy to take that on and get me started there. What questions do you have about any of the AI stuff, the floats that we used or ended up using, or the game board? There again, along the way, there were lots of decisions being made all the time. Do we do it this way? Do we do it this way? Well, what happens if we do it this way? What happens if we do it this way? And then it would come down to making a decision. Either it was a decision based on what else was happening in the game, or it was a decision based on this is what I like. So
Was the game board drawn from scratch?
It was kind of it was done in Adobe Illustrator, and it started with a Google map. But I didn't want to use a Google map because it was too modern looking, number 1. And number 2, it was way too busy. You know, like 100 times more streets than here. So I wanted a simplified version. So I picked some of the main streets that people knew about. See if I can. St. Charles Magazine. We got Bourbon Street, Esplanade. So yeah.
If I could, Glenda.
Yeah.
So I was just adamant about showing progression throughout, and how could we show progression? And one of the challenges was that the character cards that were collected, you got them from the session speakers. And so we did not we did not ever stand up and I'm not going to say it was a challenge. I want to go back and check that, but we never stood up and announced this will be on the test, right? Because we believe in making difficult learning, making it not so hard that you can't solve it, but that you've got to work for it, because we know that the science shows that unless you work for it, you're not learning it. So rather than standing up and saying, hey, you've got to collect cards from all the sessions for this to make sense, people had to discover that along the way. And so as we're showing progression on the map, I'm saying that Ian Coleman did a fantastic job on the initial map, and Glenda did a fantastic job of tying it all together. And when we think about iteration as part of design, if we were to do this again, I would want us to fine tune how we bring in the map, that people could see that they were progressing through the sessions and through solving the puzzle in a more connected manner. So it's not that something is wrong with the game design, it's that what could we do to make it a more cohesive experience would be the question I would be asking.
Yeah,
It wasn't the design, it was more about how quick everything has to keep moving. You know, there's so much going on in this live environment, and how do we had nice big poster boards made of the map, and we had a ribbon that showed progression, but whether any of the participants actually saw that, we had each of the speakers, we gave each of them a map that they would put up at the end of their PowerPoint session. At the end of their session, they could drop it into their PowerPoint presentation that said, by now you are here, and gave a little clue of how much you should know and how many puzzle pieces you should have collected. All of our speakers did that. They all participated and did a great job doing that. Whether it connected or not, I can't say that for sure. And that doesn't reflect on Glenda at all. That's a Monica desire. So
yeah, let me see if I can.
Because the story talked about meeting colorful characters along this route as you're solving this mystery. So we wanted them to meet colorful characters along the route as they were solving the mystery. Yeah,
So
they have a learning journal that Jeffrey did a beautiful job. Jeffrey Riley did a beautiful job getting that set up for us.
And these were the slides that each presenter got, where they were. This is actually Jeff Riley's slides, because he was one of the first two presenters. He did a BYOD session that was very, very well received. And it kind of
what were people bringing?
BYOD, bring your own device.
Oh, phew.
We would have welcomed it. It was New Orleans, Renee. New Orleans.
Anything can happen in New Orleans.
Anything can happen.
Everything's legal
What
in New
happens in New
Orleans, as we
Orleans
found
stays
out
in
from
New
Renee.
So yeah, picture of the card that they handed out during the session. What was coming up next? We wanted to make sure that here again, in addition to the map, you're here kind of thing. We kind of gave, okay, so what's next? What do you expect? And Monica did a fabulous job of pushing me to make sure that learners were oriented in time and space, even though it was not real in the game. In real life, it was real, and we had to kind of do both.
Mm-hmm.
Then Monica knew she wanted to do something with AR, and we had a lofty, ambitious goal of having a 3D character for every card. And the person who came in said, it'll never happen in the time frame that you have. It's a lot more work than you think. But
And
he
my
did.
question is, how hard can it be? But yes,
Exactly, right?
yes.
How hard can
How
it
hard
How
can
hard could
it
it be that we're calling upon somebody else to do it?
How can it be? But again, without a working knowledge of how hard it is to create a 3D image, because it's just like you see these beautiful images, so you think that's done fairly easily, and it's not. It's not done fairly quickly at all.
Right. It is the curse of anyone who does well in their profession. They make it look so easy, everybody thinks it just magically happens. So, so we had settled on Bundler AR early on to do the actual 3D work. But there was no way in their app for people to upload pictures or videos. And that was a key part of the experience. We wanted them to doing things. They had to make up a song about gamification to the tune of When the Saints Go Marching In. I mean, what better song from New Orleans is there than that?
And there's
And
awesome
we
results.
have some fabulous video of people's songs. They had a lot of fun with that one. So we explored an app that John Chen uses, his geo-teaming app, trying to find something that could track documentation of achievements and things like that. And we also looked at Video Ask. We ended up going a totally different direction. And we had an individual, Valerie Olenek, yeah, who was and John Chen, but he didn't do as much of the individual capturing, and we called them the memory archivists. And so when someone finished a song, or they had to strike a pose, like high-fiving each other or something like that, they would come to the memory archivist, and then she would take a picture. And then John put that all together for the final video at the end of the event.
Lots of fun.
So it was a very, very collaborative experience. There is no way I could have ever done anything like this entirely on my own. And I appreciate every single person who had a part in this. I've tried to remember each individual's. We tried to bring in other things, little extras. I found a wonderful video of the first film of any Mardi Gras parade that was taken in 1898, a year before the time of our event that was taking place. And as it had no sound, because they didn't have sound at that time, I found a recording of the Memphis Blues. It wasn't exactly Mardi Gras, but it sounded like it could have been. And we put them together and shortened the time for the film, but it was pretty inspiring. It was not only the first film of a Mardi Gras, but they think it's the first video of New Orleans ever that anybody has, the oldest. So it was a fun find.
Pretty cool.
When we put together the 3D character for Bundler AR, we had a script, and he was talking about how he was angry at this person for being responsible for losing his ship and his loot. And we voluntold Artrell Williams to voice the character, and he did a fabulous job. Sounded like a pirate, did excellent work. And then I used Well Said Labs, and it was AI voice for the woman narrator. And it was a great combination. A lot of people didn't realize that it was AI. They thought it was me, actually, but it was not.
They thought it was what?
It was me doing the
Oh, they thought it
voice
was
of
you
the
speaking.
narrator. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, has anybody else had experience with any AR work that they would like to share at this point? Because I'm sure we just used the tip of the iceberg. John from Bundler showed me some of the other work that they've been doing, and it's phenomenal stuff.
And well, at our event kickoff, Destry Hildebrand did such a fantastic job of showing
Right,
all kinds
another
of
one.
totally, free access tools out there. There was such a great widespread combination of different ways to use AR in a really easy way, right? Like we think about the work that Glenda put into this with the beautiful art and making it all happen. And meantime, if I had images of an air conditioning compressor, I could put that into a standard AR platform that's out there, and I could have just-in-time learning happening for my facilities management team who need to understand the OSHA guidelines, the lockout tagout rules, all of that really quickly. And so what I loved about what Glenda and what Destry were showing is that AR is not something that's in the future, like the metaverse that we don't have access to right now. We have access to it. We just have to be willing to take that leap and use it.
Right. John showed me a great example of people who come in and set up after a natural disaster. It's a team they bring together from a lot of different places, and so they can't schedule training. They need to get them out there and be efficient and effective right away. So they had all the people had to do was take the camera, scan the item that they were supposed to set up. Maybe it was a light tower so everybody else could work. That's very important to get that done first. So scan the box. It would show an overall video of how things worked. You could access a PDF of the instructions. You had have little descriptions for each step along the way. It was very, very interesting use of things like that. Anybody else ever have any experience with that?
I've got a little
Kind of-
experience. So back
Yeah.
in 2010 in my industry, we wanted to streamline your system. We have to train a lot of people in running and working with the systems that we have in our plants. And so what we were planning to do was we were going to purchase, and we started to do this, is purchase iPads at the time, and then we would go out and we would put targets on various pieces of equipment. And so as the person brought their iPad out with them and snapped a picture of that code on the equipment, then it would bring up a system flow and tell them, okay, this is the system flow, this is the way it goes, this is what's going on, this is how this component works. It would tell them if it was, like say, a safety related component, or what kind of component it was. So it gave them, and they could actually just walk down that system and learn about all the components in that system rather than sit through 6 months of classroom trying to memorize all this stuff. And that just actually do it, with on their own.
Yeah.
And Phil, tell us, what kind of plants is it that you work in?
Nuclear power plants.
Nuclear power plants.
Nuclear power plants. Yep.
It's nuclear power plants. People got to get this right. Yeah, I love it.
Exactly. They have to get it right on the money. And so we spend a lot of money with simulators. I mean, we have multi-million-dollar simulators, and we do a lot of training in the nuclear industry so that we do get it right. So yes.
Love it.
A lot of really great uses I see for that in the future. Probably things we can't even dream of right now, but
Well, we
I'm-
think about shortages of hiring. You know, you hear it takes time to competency is 6 years, time to competency is 12 years. Well, we don't really have that luxury anymore. So how are we going to get people to competency, and how can we provide just-in-time learning for where they are so that they're safe? The services they're providing are safe for the people that are right. So all of this, the technology is what will help us to get there. We just have to be willing to embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah, the guys who delivered our refrigerator the other day sure could have used training. Wow. Oh my gosh. So we got a claim in now. They really need to redo our floors. They pushed a refrigerator across our wood floors.
Oh no, I'm laughing and that's not funny.
Yeah.
No.
But it is, you know, it is one of those things where it's like, okay, that delivery company, by not training their employees, they're going to have a claim against them, against their insurance. Is that a good use of money?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
We don't have
bad
money to
decision to not
train. We don't
people.
have money to train, but we're going to have money to pay this claim. Yeah.
That's right. Well, it comes from the insurance company, right? They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and that's bad finances too, because the insurance companies are going to raise their rates if we all keep having claims. So
Plus,
Sure.
you're not going to have
Nothing's free.
anything favorable to say about them. If anyone asks what kind of moving company, you're going to say, certainly not these people, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm so sorry, Jeffrey.
That's okay. It's a great refrigerator though.
I'm glad of that.
Lay down some rugs. You'll never see it. Yeah. All right.
I want to do a quick check-in for time. Do we need to wrap up on the half hour, Monica?
Probably close to it if we can.
Okay.
How we doing, Glenda?
I think we're doing great. We're
Okay.
doing great on time. Trying to keep track of all of the characters and what's happening with the what they have to do. Do they have to do something at this point? Do they have to solve a puzzle? So a lot of that ended up in my player journey spreadsheet. And that's where I started, with all of the sessions and the characters that was going to be the character card that was going to be handed out. And this got so unwieldy, I had to stretch it out quite a bit. So, what was the challenge? What was the answer? Was there a physical item handed out at that place? Were there puzzle pieces being handed out? What was the letter on the card? The trickster's card was an R. And what were the gemstone colors? It ended up being violet, red, orange, and yellow. What location did that correspond to on our map? And these were all real locations in places of New Orleans. And so when there was a circle on a board, that was a real place. It had an address, it had a name of a business or an individual who lived there. And so to keep it real. What kind of speaker notes? What were restrictions on the game? So, and even on here, I ended up with multiple spreadsheets and multiple documents, but this was the main document that kept me sane throughout here, and was extremely valuable. If you're trying anything this big, I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of other project management tools out there that I could have used. Maybe they would have been easier. but I hadn't used them before. I was familiar with Excel and using it to track projects. I was also familiar with OneNote. I did a lot in OneNote, keeping track of stuff. Now that was my spreadsheet. I did a lot of this. Oh, that's my spreadsheet. What is this? Here we go. Here was my gamification and just keeping track of, that was my flight information. Where's the project plan? Where's the speaker roster? So on all this kind of things that I needed somewhere to put it. It didn't really fit in my spreadsheet, but OneNote became a wonderful repository for a lot of these things. Anybody else would look at this and say, I don't know how you can make heads or tails out of this. But sometimes I confused myself, but for the most part, this was great. The color-coded alphabet. Here again, I used AI, ChatGPT. I said, create a color key using these colors and assign it to a letter. And so the first iteration was, okay, A is yellow, green is B, blue is D. No. I need more information than that. So there again, I had to refine my prompt to get more information. But one thing that I forgot was there can be no duplicates. So the first one that I finally got that looked pretty good, I thought I had it, and I started adjusting the cards and quickly found out, wait a minute, I already did that set of colors. So I had to go back again and redo it so that there were no duplicates. But that was a fun part, doing that. And we ended up hiding the treasure at the training mag podium. And you can see here was the codes that spelled this out. And each card also had numbers on it, so that if you set them out in order, these numbers here, this was card 17 out of 19. This was number 2 out of 19. But if you laid them all out and you looked up the color code, it would spell out in order the training mag podium. So that again was part of keeping track on my spreadsheet, everything that
Which is funny at the end, because I was up at the lectern as Jonathan Peterson's corrected us. And everyone kept coming up saying, is this a training magazine podium? And at first I didn't connect with, and I was like, well, it's a training magazine podium, but I think it's the game. And it took me like 3 people asking me before I realized why they were asking me that question. And I should have known right away. And so I would say, this is the GameCon podium, was my answer after that. This is the GameCon podium. So they solved it and we're looking for it. So that was fun.
yeah.
I failed to tell the training magazine people.
Well,
Strangers would be climbing on their platform saying, is this the training? Because they're like, Felice is up there. What? I don't know why you're asking me this question.
There were many lessons learned.
Lessons learned, yes.
This whole event, and clarity on the map and the player journey there was one big lesson learned. It did not feel part of the cohesive. The rest of it felt more cohesive, but that did not. It kind of felt extra. And that's what I tried very hard to avoid, but we kind of missed the mark there. But I'm not sure that it was overly noticeable. by participants. I heard many wonderful things about people having a good time. So I think that we did good enough, Monica.
Well, and again, Glenda, it is by no means a reflection on your game design. It's more, and people outside of the inner circle aren't even having those thoughts. It's this iteration's part of design, and it's such a beautiful design. I don't want to use it just once. I want to use it more. And how can we use it more? And how can we make it we can always keep leveling it up the more that we get to interact with it. Glenda has put so many hours into this. And when we look at that spreadsheet she was showing us, the number of hours that she and I poured over it with me asking her, and so then how does that happen? And so then how does that happen? And then, Glenda was each time, mapping it and showing me how it happened next and where we were going next. And she always had the answer. And we just had to bring it to how we can show this to individuals that are there at GameCon. Again, keeping in mind that there's a million other things happening around them at the same time. So I just couldn't be happier with what Glenda created here as far as just the sheer beauty of it. I just don't think that we could do any better than this. I just think it's just amazingly gorgeous. And when we think about aesthetics of design and what our learners are expecting, this to me is an absolutely first class, top of the game, top tier, just beautiful imagery, and creating that 1899 experience of being at that Mardi Gras parade. Just lovely.
So can I ask how much time there is that you do have it involved with in this? I'm curious.
955 billion trillion 635 million.
Is
Plus
that
other
something you
people that were
tracked?
I did not start keeping track.
Oh.
Best I can estimate is it's north of 300 hours.
300 person hours?
Yes.
or just your
One
time,
person.
Glenda.
That was just one.
Oh,
would be-
okay.
My person hours, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm looking at. I'm wondering how much effort there is in this whole thing in person hours. What would you estimate?
This was on a pretty grand scale too. It's over 2 days, and I think that a scaled down version could be used and put together a lot more easily. But that story that was woven through the whole thing had a lot to do with the cohesiveness and keeping track of that story and what was happening on the player journey spreadsheet are key to making it successful.
Yeah, I take this into an instructor led, where we know it's an instructor that's taking the participants through the journey with AI. No, because we throw in, how many instructors were there then? We threw in 19, 20?
19 sessions and
19 different people that had to be woven into this, who are coming in at all different levels of engagement themselves. Some are showing up immediately before giving their session. Others were there the entire time. So there's just all different moving pieces. But it is an interesting question, Phil, that we should have an answer for. But I think we are too scared.
Pretty much. I know, I'm scared. I'd like to add to that, though, to say that, one of the purposes of this was to allow people creating gamification to experience gamification. And one of the ways that this happened was in weaving together these different pieces. It wasn't just experiencing just the collectible cards, which could work very well for a conference, but this allowed people to experience a whole number of different things throughout and feel how that feels for themselves as a learner. And different things are going to appeal to different personas, which is always important to remember. But I think that the complexity of this one served a very different purpose. Then we didn't need to engage people. Everybody was here because they wanted to learn about gamification. The speakers were certainly capable of engaging people. That wasn't what the purpose was in this case for the gamification. This was to allow people to feel that process within themselves, so that they can take that into their creation of gamification.
And thank you for that, Renee. At the same time, I always like us to be cognizant of any uncomfortableness that we're feeling as the learner. That's exactly how our learners are feeling when we put something like this in their hands.
Yeah.
We've lived with this for a minimum of 300 hours, and now they're seeing it for the first time, and we're wondering why they're asking us questions about it, or why they're not sure of what the next step is, and that we can only advance as fast as that user experience allows for the most novice user. So as we think back through the whole player journey and who we were designing for, oh, you can bring up Irene. Irene was who we were designing for primarily. Irene, because we give the Reese profile to our level 2 participants, we know that across the board for Sententia, Irene is the largest population we will experience at an event. And so the persona that I asked Glenda to design for was Irene. Were there other personas there? Yes, there were. And we saw that some of those other personas did not engage with the game at all. And we did not design the game for them. But the game was designed for our Irene persona, which Glenda, again, tackled and really managed masterfully.
And I didn't give away any answers.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeffrey
Yes.
will never live that down. Can't tell him, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, like, he's that nice person that, like, Jeffrey, you can't tell him the answers.
Yes, Jeffrey was part of the play test early on, and we had 2 or 3 play tests. I think I was on my 4th play test before we had anybody who was able to finish the game. Because it was so complex, and it was designed to cover 2.5 days, basically. I left a lot out, but basically, okay, here's the clues. Can you solve it from these clues? That was the play test that I did with my family members online. And I was very gratified that both teams were able to finish and solve the puzzle. So I felt much better after that. I was getting very nervous about the possibility that people would not understand it well enough to be able to solve it. And we kept going back to, well, how will they know that? And how will they know to do that? And a lot of people kept saying, well, that wasn't very clear. I need to add some additional instructions here and things like that. So the value of the play test really, really was evident to me in this.
Yeah, all games have to be play tested. There's no shortage, and no way to shorten that. You have to do it. Even the little thing that I did that I built for my presentation had that play tested. And the things that we think are obvious and that make sense, other people just don't have a clue. So, and that was great feedback for me to understand where did this fall down and what do I need to do next time. So yeah, I could see how you get that, because you had a very complicated game.
And I wonder if we had kept it all low tech, just an analog game, if it would have been more, because it was a tech conference, we wanted to bring in the technology. But when you bring in technology should not be just because, it should serve a purpose. It should be enhancing people's ability to learn and apply what they're learning and put it into action in real time. And this is not against Bundle AR when I say this. It's just that, did the technology serve that purpose? I think that we could probably really debate that rather strongly whether we could have done it just as easily and more effectively as an analog game. But because we're at a tech conference, we wanted to bring technology.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I still have to compliment Glenda on, we're doing this as a group, and we'd have these sessions and things would be going this way and that way, and somebody would kind of come out of left field and throw something at Glenda, and she never flinched. She just said, well, let me consider that and figure a way to work out. She did it.
Did it. Yeah. Yeah. Really kudos to you, Glenda.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So we're a little bit
Thank you
past
to
time. So
everyone.
should we wrap soon, Glenda?
What's that?
We're a little past time. Should we wrap soon?
Yep. I'm finished with what I have to share. If anybody has any more questions, I'll be happy to stay on and answer them.
And I'm happy to stay on with you.
All right. And again, I just think that as we look at what this was and where we started and where we ended up, and Jeffrey had a really good point at the end there, as we did weekly meetings that people would, like we went from, I wanted so badly for people to be creating floats in the room. I just saw this chaos of feathers and glitter but if we look at the persona that we were designing for, that doesn't fit the persona, nor does it fit the structure of the event. And it was a few team members on one of those Monday night meetings being very strong about, we got to cancel these live float thing you got wanting here, Monica, because I don't see the purpose of it. And it was really Joe Maddox, who was our chief of staff prior to the event leading up to it. That was really strong with making me see that just because I want it, that's self-hugging. That doesn't fit our persona, it doesn't fit the event. We need to go to another idea. And while we're talking about that idea, Rebecca Arnett's in the back creating AI images of floats that we can make into puzzles. And she's like, how about this? And I'm like, all right, yes, we can do that. And it was gorgeous. And there was no reason not to do it. So yeah, it does really take, we say it all the time, you cannot design in a bubble. You for sure will miss important elements if we just do it on our own. And it really is the power of a strong team and willing to speak up and take some risks. Yeah. Thank you, Glenda. I couldn't be more delighted.
Thank you so much.
Hey, so Renee and Glenda are going to stay on, but one thing I have to do before we close out, Renee, is I promised that if people filled out the review of their experience at the event, we would do a drawing for a GameCon 48V registration for themselves and a colleague.
Yes.
Is there a way? Renee always has these fantastic.
So yeah, Monica wanted me to like just before we started, she says, "Can you put all these emails into a spinner?"
You know,
or
paste
something? I'm like,
these in.
Monica, emails are going to be just outrageous on a spinner. How about? So she's got the numbered list. I've got the numbered spinner. We're going to be a team here. We're going to spin the spinner, and then Monica's going to check out the numbers on her list. And are you ready?
I'm ready. Just like the Monica? 3D image. How hard can it be, Renee? Go ahead, Renee. All right. All right.
Well, let's go.
All right. Is there a sound?
Oh, didn't you hear the sound?
No, I guess you have to share your sound. But if you already spun it, don't redo it.
That was spun it. Look up number 15. Who we got?
Number 15?
15. 1-5.
1-5. All right, so 15 on the list is Joe at countrybarnfarm.com.
Barn Farm.
Is that a company?
I don't know.
Barn Farm.
Country Barn Farm?
Country Barn Farm. That's not a Joe we have here. We don't have a Joe here.
No.
All right.
All right, well, Joe at Country Barn Farm.
Congratulations, Joe at Country Barn Farm.
I'm sorry that I hope I met you at GameCon. I just don't realize the company that you work for. Now I'm going to have to go look that up. countrybarnfarm.com. So Joe, you and a colleague will have earned a free registration to GameCon 48V. Woo!
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you for completing our questionnaire, because both Sherry Prindle, who is here, who created our escape room for our Monday night NOLA event, and Glenda, who created the game. These are both level 3 projects that they implemented live at GameCon. So you're helping them to complete their certification by completing that questionnaire. They can move data into their portfolio of evidence. So all of you who have completed that questionnaire, we appreciate you taking the time. I know it was longer than you were expecting, but we needed that data points for the portfolio of evidence for the level 3 project. So thank you for that. And I'll reach out to Joe and let him know that he won. Woohoo! Thank you, Renee.
Well, and thank
Barn
you.
Farm is a beekeeping company.
Oh, okay.
They teach beekeeping classes too in Pennsylvania.
Ooh,
Oh.
Awesome. I gotta talk to Joe.
look at me. What? How cool is that?
Cool. Thanks for looking that up.
you, Renee.
Glenda, thank you
So
so
that's
much for
awesome.
sharing some of your process today.
Yes.
I hope that was helpful to people.
I
And
hope it was.
yeah, awesome.
So if you want to hang on and ask questions, please feel free to do that. We will now be making the recordings available. So those of you who are a member of our Game Garage community, this is our first foray into the membership community. And the reason we decided to do it was because our master craftsmen are in a private exclusive WhatsApp group. And that group is so active. And I was reminded, because I was doing an executive speaking course this week, and one of the gentlemen who works for a credit union was talking about how he likes to work on his network. And he reminded me that 70% of all jobs come from a network connection. And when I think about our master craftsmen and how through all the marketplace upheaval that's happened, many of our master craftsmen have found their next job because of that WhatsApp community, which makes me even more excited about the community we're creating with the Game Garage, because it is the power of your network. So it's not just about information and knowledge, it's also about the people that you'll meet within that community. So thank you for everyone for being here. The recording will be made available to you. Renee and Glenda, thank you so much for putting this together. Rebecca, thank you for adding to that awesomeness of that game. Jeffrey, from the very beginning, you've been part of it. So thank you to everyone. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time, where we'll have Bernardo Latafe, who's going to do a debrief of the game that he created for our GameCon event. Is Bernardo still here?
No.
Nope, he was in here
Okay.
for a bit,
Saw
but
him
couldn't stay.
pop
For a second. All right. Good. Thank you, everyone. See you again in 2 weeks. What's that date?
20th.
20th.
Yeah.
20th. October 20th. We'll see you then. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.